Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. It is now 11 a.m. East African time, and that's what we had said we would begin this session on young men and money at 11 a.m. And here at Centonomy, we as much as possible try and take control of our time, because one of the lessons that you'll go through once you come into the Centonomy Campus Edition is there we go. Sorry, I was on mute. A time when we look at the amazing potential of the money and the investments that you want to make over time and the effect of time. And it's not just about investments, it's also about your skill sets. It's also about refining those skills when it comes to whether it's developing a career that you want to build on, or whether it's developing a business that you want to grow. Time matters. Time matters. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Oops, I took off the screen. I wanted to show you something on that screen. Remember today, the hashtag that we're going to use is Centonomy Campus Edition, hashtag Young Men and Money. Please do tweet and share this out to as many friends as possible. Instagram, Facebook, if you're still on Facebook, although I don't know about young men on Facebook, we will find out about that later on today. And also wealth creation, hashtag wealth creation. Those are the three hashtags that we're going to use. And we're going to have an opportunity to talk about them along the way. Just a little bit about myself. I am the CEO of Centonomy Limited. We're a company that is determined to shift your mindset so that you can be able to create wealth and to live abundantly. I'm also a man, as you can see, God willing, and relatively young, although I have a feeling that in this room, I might be one of the older ones, especially now that the hairline has started receding. Well, it has been receding for a while. It has achieved a certain level at this point. I'm just glad that my brother Mwenesi has joined me on this journey, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go. But even as I look at the end of my 30s, which is, I have now entered into my last 365 days of my 30s, I look to, God willing, to a future in my 40s that that we would share honestly about our experiences. That's why we've put together an amazing group of who are here to share with you, a group of gentlemen who are here to give their experiences, to share their personal journeys, as well as some of the lessons from that journey. It is really important that each one of us begin to hear from other men along the way, that we would begin to understand what the potential is for each one of us. And this is especially just for men, because I don't know about you, but I get the sense that women have gotten a lot of attention in the recent past, and with good reason. For a long period, women were kept out of the decision-making space. They were kept out of jobs. They were kept out of opportunities that were there. And there was a need for there to be a shift and an acknowledgement of women in the society and giving them an opportunity to grow. But I feel that in doing so, there may have been an overcorrection. And so what we want to do in this session is not necessarily to say, oh, women, we don't want you here. In fact, I have a feeling there are a few young ladies who are watching and participating in this. You are welcome. However, today, don't be surprised if we give the men a bit of preference as far as questions are concerned. But we want to make sure that we're not also leaving the young men behind, because what we want is a strong society in which everyone is productive. Everyone is achieving their goals and their dreams. That's what we want. It's not about segregation of any kind. So in this session, we do want to have a focus on money, but all the elements that you're going to see coming across will play a part in that. At Centonomy, as we said, we want to shift your mindset so that you can be able to create wealth and to live abundantly. Every one of the speakers who will be speaking today will be sharing their personal experiences and thoughts from where they come from. And we want to give you a special opportunity to ask them questions. And I pray that you would use that opportunity well and ask meaningful questions for application in your own lives. So I hope everyone is ready, especially those who are in the Zoom session. If you can type in the chat box, give us an idea. First of all, tell us, where are you in the world? Where are you tuning in to this session from? Those on Facebook, I know we're streaming there as well. If you can just type in the comments down below, just tell us where you are. Be specific. Tell us the city and the country in which you're in. You know, because sometimes you tell us the city and we're not very familiar with all the cities in the, but if you tell us the country, at least we'll have a perspective of that. Wow, look at that. That's Emmanuel in Kampala in Uganda, Kent in Nairobi here in Kenya. Are there only 2 participants? Come on, guys, go to the chat box and just type in, hey, Katleho, I know you'll be speaking to us from South Africa. I hope I said your name correctly. Magdalene, Nairobi in Maua in Nairobi, someone else. Great. Pretoria, South Africa. Look at that. Stella in Pretoria. Excellent. Karibu sana. That's what it's welcome in Swahili here. Excellent. Kelvin in Eldoret. Very good. Jonah in Mombasa, Nanyuki. We've got lots of people from all around Kenya, Machakos, Andrew there. Look at that. Look at that. That's Yasin in Mwanza in Tanzania. This is truly an international session. As you can see, we've got people from all over Africa who are tuning in, and I know we've got lots more coming through. Look at that, north of Kenya, Lodwa, Ruth, welcome, Karibu sana, that's Evans. Great, great, great. Just keep typing and we'll recognize you from wherever you are around the world. We're so happy to have you part of this conversation. But I'm really excited to invite our first speaker for the day. He's my brother. We've been working together for a couple of years now. He's had an influence on my life because he challenges us to think differently about ourselves, how we present ourselves, how we build that personal brand that we're going on. He is an image consultant and soft skills coach, Mr. Mwenesi Musalia, who is a huge part of the Centonomy team. He heads up our career hub, but he is also a man who carries his own weight, generally an entrepreneur in his own right, and he'll tell us a little bit more about himself. My brother, I don't have enough words to welcome you into this session. So tell us a bit about yourself and take it away from there.
Thank you so much, Waithaka. Thank you to everybody and good morning to everyone, wherever it is that you're watching. I just first of all want to appreciate Waithaka and the entire Centonomy team. These are the kind of things that I wish I had when I was a young man growing up. I'm not saying that I'm not young anymore. I'm still young. I'm not in the youth bracket. We're with you approaching our 4th floor, and yes, the hairlines have obviously disappeared. But honestly, these are the kind of sessions and forums that are truly life-changing and worthwhile, and I applaud everybody who has logged in. Really well done, fantastic, and hopefully we will have a good conversation together with the other brothers who are going to be joining us on this forum. So congratulations, Waithaka and the Centonomy team. Keep doing what you're doing. This is really, really excellent, and I'm honored to be a part of this. So as Waithaka mentioned, my name is Mwenesi Musalia, and I besides working with Centonomy and being a friend and partner to the team there, I also run several business interests. I'm an employer. I have been employed severally. I am an investor. I have seen money come and I've seen a lot of money go. I have experienced serious failures, serious hardships, serious breakups, but also very, very exciting success. And I am a firm believer in putting your best foot forward and your best self forward so that whatever happens, you can always be prepared and make the most out of any situation that comes your way. I am a soft skills coach, which is really the stuff that most people in school will not really focus on, because I think school really concentrates on giving you the technical abilities that you require and to enhance your skills. But I'm talking about the other softer things, like how you speak to people, how you communicate. And while the word soft is in there, for me, it's really core competencies, because how you express yourself will determine whether or not you will get that job, whether or not that customer or that client will respond to you in a way that is favorable, and whether you can actually keep the connections that will help you generate the income and the wealth that you're looking for. Because here at Centonomy, we're all about wealth generation and creation. So when I was approached to join this amazing panel of speakers to talk about young men and money, and someone was asked, I think Esther asked me about the mistakes that I have made and the challenges that I have faced in my life. I said, I don't think half an hour is enough, because I have done spectacular things, which honestly, in hindsight, if I could go back in time and rewind the clock, I would not do half of those things. So I want to share with you some of those things that I did. Hopefully you will either learn from them, or, you know, some people like to say, let me try, let me fail myself. Let me not listen to Kina Mwenesi and listen to them. I want to try for myself and fail and then see what happens. But those who will take from this, maybe you don't have to go through some of those challenges, and perhaps you can do a few things differently. So I want to break it down, my chat, into three distinct parts. The first part will be the mistakes that I have made, and I think some of my friends and people who I see now, young men, older men, but especially people in their youth, mistakes that you have made with their money. That would be my first topic. The second one would be some of the challenges that young men experience, especially on their money and career journey. And then I will round it off with some opportunities in your career, which you can use and try and make something of yourself so that you can grow and avoid some of those pitfalls. So that's how I'm going to break it down, and I won't waste too much time, and hopefully after this we'll be on hand to answer any questions that you guys have. So when we talk about the mistakes that young men make with money, my list is endless, but I'm trying to compress it into just some bite-sized ones so that you guys don't get too tired with my chatting. I think the first one is responding to pressure from your environment. These days we call it flexing, or, you know, trying to drip when you can't drip, you know. And it's because we're inundated on social media and the internet. And when I was growing up, although social media was not very, very prevalent, it was just coming out. I think those days we had something like MySpace and High Five, but still, all that social media has done is it has enhanced what was already there. Yeah, when you're walking around campus or you're in high school and you see the kid with the latest phone or the latest gadget or the latest jeans or the latest whatever, and you start thinking to yourself, okay, the reactions that this guy is getting from these chicks and from the group and whatever, it seems like, you know, he has his stuff figured out. So you start looking at yourself, and you start looking at your own outfit, your own phone, your own whatever, and you start to compare. And that comparison and responding to that pressure, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes that I made. Although for me, I can call it two things. Some people will take it either positively or negatively. I am fortunate because I chose, and I don't know whether it's just my personality, but I chose to take it positively, and I began to challenge myself. I didn't say, oh, this guy has a nice car, or he has nice jeans, or he has a nice watch, nice material things, and he seems to be getting all the chicks. Can I also get those things? I always challenged myself and said, oh, fantastic, good for you, congratulations. I will also look into myself and see how I can start to make the money that I can, not necessarily comparing and saying, if you made this money either by selling drugs or by stealing or whatever it is that you did to get that money, I will also join you. And I saw many guys in my university and in my high school. And by the way, Katleho, for your info, I'm a Vitsi. I went to Wits and I spent many years in Juba. So you and I will catch up with this. So I spent a lot of time in my high school looking at guys who had money, who had stuff, and I wanted that stuff. And that leads to the second point, where you overstretch yourself and you stop focusing on your journey and start focusing on other people's journey. You start living your life according to other people. That's something that I struggled with, because in the community that I was in, I was around a lot of wealthy expatriate children. And when I saw how they were living, I was like, hey, even me, man, hey, you know, I used to walk and I used to take the matatu to school, you know, and some of these guys would come and pick me up in their Golf GTI, and I would think, even how can I also get this car? So I stopped focusing on school and started thinking also, how can I start making money? How can I start getting these, making money so that I can get these things? The mistake that I was making is that I was not making money. I was not looking to get money so that I can invest, or that I can save, or that I can better myself. I just wanted to make money so that I could buy the nice watch, or the nice car, or the nice jeans. So my motivation for trying to make money when I was young was not with a plan to better myself. It was with a plan to consume. Yeah. And
Yep.
that consumer mentality is one of the biggest mistakes that I made, because not making money to consume as opposed to making money to invest. When I look back at when I've told my story on several platforms, and I think of all the money that I was making. And at one point, because of that motivation to get those nice cars and those nice clothes and whatever, I ended up making a lot of money because I was hustling, I was DJing, I was doing promotions, I was doing a lot of things. And I was making some decent money. I mean, anywhere between 200 and 400,000 shillings, and I was in my early 20s, right? But if you ask me today where that money is, I can't tell you. I spent it on, I don't want to say on rubbish, because at the time I was feeling very happy on the things that I was spending it on, but I don't have anything to show for it, I bought cars, I bought clothes, I bought watches, I bought, mushaino. I wanted to bling, I wanted to flex, I wanted to drink. That was all I was concerned about. But if I think back on, did I take that money and invest it in something that could make more money? Did I buy a property? Did I put it in stocks? Did I put it in bonds? Did I put my money in a business that could have helped me churn out more money? Because one of the biggest lessons that I learned was, and I think it's one of the things that I'll talk about in the last part of my conversation about career growth opportunities, is that making money so that I can impress, as opposed to making money so that I can invest, is, I think that if I could go back in time, I could actually rewind that, because all the money that I made, if I'd lived, let's say I was making 200K at the time, if I'd taken 100K of that and put it into a business, maybe we would have been having a different conversation now. But I thank God, every opportunity is an opportunity to learn, right? And I'm putting a lot of those mistakes that I made then into, I'm learning from those mistakes now, and I'm putting into practice a lot of the things that I did then. I'm not making those mistakes now in my 30s, as I am now an old wise guy. So making money to impress and not making money to invest, I think that was the other big mistake that I made. The last one that I don't know if it was a mistake, I think it's just because maybe our upbringing as Africans, maybe, and I'm generalizing, maybe it wasn't quite there with me. And that's why I'm so happy that a place like Centonomy exists, because there was nowhere where I could go to school to learn about money. Let me repeat that. There was nowhere that I could go to school to learn about money, how money works, how it can work for me, how I can use it to make myself better. I mean, there were things in university like a BCom in finance, which I actually did apply, but because my mathematics is not the best, I failed on arrival. My application was dead on arrival because they wanted me to do an entrance exam that required calculus. So BCom finance was not for me. But I'm talking about a money education. And if you're not lucky to have had parents or a mentor or someone who can teach you, this is what money does. If you get 10 bob, use 7, save 1, take 2, use it and invest it, that type of thing. An education where someone can actually teach me how money works, as opposed to me going to get an education so that I can get a job, so that I can earn a salary, so that I can make money, which is how many of us have been taught. Our lives have been structured in that way. Go to school, get a job, earn a salary, save, and hopefully you don't end up in jail, you don't kill yourself, you don't become a waste to society. But when I look at the people who are making wealth, especially around me, I mean, we were in the same school doing the same thing, but some of them, like, the money was working for them. I didn't understand how that was possible, but I decided I also wanted to learn. So I started hanging out with those guys, and that's what that's why when it comes to now, how did I fix that mistake? Yeah, how did I fix the mistake of not getting a money education? I started to associate myself with people who understood money, because I didn't come from a place where I had a Centonomy that was available to me. I had parents or people who could teach me, by the way, Mwenesi, when you make that money, don't go, pop bottles in the club. Don't go try and buy drinks for everybody so that you can impress those 3 chicks who are there with you. Don't go and spend it all on putting subwoofers and things in your car, screens, because those days used to have pimp my ride. And I was constantly on the latest trend. In fact, there was a time where I think one episode, the guy put a jacuzzi in a van, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe even me, I can also put a jacuzzi and a PlayStation in my van, stuff like that. And you watch all this pop culture, and you want to keep up with the trends, but no one actually is teaching you how to make your mind work for you. So those mistakes, there's so many others that I can make, but I think those were the big ones. And spending money on stuff that is not an asset, that cannot make you progress, that if I could go back and turn the clock, I could absolutely change that. So that's the first part. Make the mistakes that I made with money, making money to impress or to invest, not saving and flexing, not having a plan as to what I'm doing with my money, and not getting a money education. So some of the challenges, now if I can go into part 2 of my discussion, some of the challenges that I faced, and I think I touched on this, is that I don't think I had any kind of role model or someone that could hold my hand and teach me or show me how to use my money. Yeah. I don't mean like an investment advisor, although you look at the wealthiest people on earth, many of them have stockbrokers and wealth fund managers and investment advisors, and people who are actually talking to them and saying, look, don't put your money here, put your money here, don't do this. If you get a windfall, you don't want to spend it all at once on something. Have you thought about your family's future, your children's education, that sort of thing? So I think one of the challenges that many young men experience is not having any kind of mentorship or guidance as far as your money is concerned. And again, that's why I want to seriously applaud Centonomy. This is so necessary. The stuff that you will learn in the entire Centonomy, modules, not just Career Hub, not just Campus Edition, but across the board. Centonomy's core focus is to help you figure out how to make your money work for you and how you can increase your opportunities to not just save, but also make money to invest. So I think that's a big challenge that many men face. And another challenge is that men don't talk. We don't talk to each other. we talk about surface things like, Obama signed a new contract. Have you seen the latest whatever? We talk about politics, we talk about sports, we talk about, small talk, but we don't talk about our real issues. And the fact is, many men are suffering, not just young, not just old, but men are really, and because society has placed in the main the burden of being the provider and the security guard of the home on men. So we have been given that responsibility as providers. And so whenever we're not in a position to provide, it becomes really difficult because you don't know who to turn to and who to talk to. And so that challenge of not having someone who you can just confide in, whether it's a pastor or a close friend or a sibling or a parent or someone who you can just go and download, and say, hey, you know what, but I'm dealing with this issue. I'm not sure how to go about it. Whereas women are very comfortable, and I've seen this, saying, hey, but I'm in a fix. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with this situation. So I want to encourage guys, just, find a close, trusted person who you can, if you're having a really tough time or things are not going according to plan, have a place where you can go and talk. It's a safe space where no one is going to judge you. I think that's a challenge that a lot of guys face. And I realized, I started owning that. As soon as I hit 25, I got myself 2 people. One is he's more in the spiritual, religious side, who every weekend I just sit with him and we talk about everything that's happened during the week. It's almost like therapy, There's no shame in thinking, because I think men think that because you're a man, you're supposed to be strong. You can't talk about your weaknesses. You can't be vulnerable. You can't show that you're suffering, you have issues, and that's what ends up causing a lot of mental health situations. And we know that the biggest causes of mental health especially now, is money and the lack of it. So having that person who you can confide in, I think, is a challenge that many men face. So I really want to encourage guys, talk, download, don't keep it to yourself. I mean, if stuff going on in you, have an outlet. And that also leads me to the third thing. I think your circle of friends, right? Think about the conversation that you're having with the five closest people around you. Those conversations about how you're going to grow, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. How are you growing? And are the people that you are the closest to you, are you having conversations about growth? Because if it's just bana form nigani weekend, who are we going to check out? Basic happy, and we want to find out, okay, what's the latest thing that is happening this weekend? What are we doing today? Who are we going to see? Are we going to just hang out and play FIFA? Are we going to, are you the closest people in your life, and you are the sum total of the 5 influences around you. If the people around you who you spend the most time with, if you look at your WhatsApp or your phone messages or your phone calls, the people that you call the most, are these people helping you grow? Or are these people just encouraging you to consume and push the boundaries of spending beyond your means? Are they helping you? Are they referring you to say, hey, but I think you should read this book or watch this documentary or figure out this or watch this channel, whatever? Are they helping you? And finally, do you have the right kind of partner? And I think this is something, this is a challenge that not just young men, but even older men, as you start to now think about settling down, the kind of person that you want to settle down with, if it's your sweetheart or your girlfriend or whoever it is, are they supporting you in any kind of way as far as your growth or your agenda or your ambition is concerned? And finding the right partner, you could get someone because they're hot or because they make you feel a certain way, but are they actually encouraging you to grow and become someone? Are they supporting you or creating the right environment? So getting the right partner, the right circle of friends, the right mentorship to get the money education are very important. Finally, in terms of the career growth opportunities, I would say, number one, see if you can consume, if on a daily basis, look at how much content you're consuming, right? Is this content that is helping you grow? Online, there's so many, for every funny video that you watch, for every video on sports or gaming or whatever it is that you watch, how much of that content is actually assisting you to become better, to grow as a person, to get your sense of identity? Are you also finding out how people motivate people? Because in order to become wealthy, the wealthiest people understand what motivates people. Are you looking at what motivates people so that you can either provide something that they need or provide something that they want so they can profit from it, or are you just busy not paying attention to what motivates people? And then finally, I'll close out by saying, wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing, please get a money education, not a skills education, but a money education, an education that talks to you specifically about cash and how to handle it. So I know I could go on and on because I'm very passionate about this, but of course that I want to wish you guys nothing but the very best. I hope that you don't make the same mistakes that some of us made, and that if you are in the process of making those mistakes, that at least you can quickly pivot and adjust. And God bless you, and I wish everybody who was tuning in nothing but the best. And thank you, Waithaka, for the opportunity.
Mwenesi, as always, amazing. Your content is always building. So we had a bit of challenge through it with the connection. I'm not sure, there was a bit of sound issue, but I was able to take down notes. Let me see if I got your lessons down right. I think you mentioned lesson number 1, be around people who think differently. I think that was one of the things you said. Surround yourself with people who are actually thinking differently from you and will help you to think differently and approach the world differently. Number 2, get a role model, get mentorship. And I'll ask you a question about mentorship just now, but that was the second thing. So you need to be around people who have gone before, who've had that experience. Number 3, talk about things. Guys, one of the things that we struggle with is that we don't talk. We think that you have to handle everything by yourself. You have to do it by yourself. And I agree with you, Mwenesi, having a group of men around you who you can be able to say, hey, this is the journey that I'm going through. How can we get through this? Real talk, not just the stuff that we usually talk about, nonsense. Number 4, think about the partner that you're going to have. Young men, even as you begin to think about marriage, as you begin to think about that life decision that you're going into, is this someone who has a thought process just like you? See, I'm taking notes, Mwenesi. Number 5, you said, what content are you consuming? Because that's one of the things. Everyone has a Netflix subscription, but they never watch a documentary. You know what I mean? You're just watching all the series that are out there with no content. But if you actually switch over to the documentaries and learn about, I was just watching some of the musicians and in the American musicians, and we don't realize how much of a business the music industry is. You know, that's the kind of discussion. The Quincy Jones documentary,
yes.
It's a mind shift because he was in business. It's not just his talent, he was in business. And the last one is money education, which is why everyone has tuned in here to Centonomy. So I have a question for you, Mwenesi, if we can in the next 4 minutes or so. This issue of mentorship comes up a lot. And in my experience, I've never gone through a formal, good morning, sir, how are you? Can you be my mentor? There was never something like that. But I found ways to be around people who I respected and I worked around. What advice would you give to your younger self, who are all in this room, on this issue of mentorship? What would you say? How do we build that culture?
Excellent. So I can only speak from my experience. And like I said, I was in a situation where a lot of my friends at the time, they were very well off. And I realized that they were not well off because of themselves. They were well off because of their parents and the decisions that their parents had made. So every time I would go and visit them, I lived in a place called Four Ways Gardens, which is like, it's like really up there in terms of like the environment, the kind of like, it's like Runda here. And although I come from Mtaani, I'm a guy who's born here in the hood, you know, like, you know, so for me, it was all a new experience. So while I would go and visit my friends and we would hang out and we would play PlayStation or whatever, I would always find time to find an excuse to sit with their parents and just hang out with their parents or whoever was in charge of them and listen to them, even if it's 5-10 minutes. So they would always understand, they would always be shocked, like, Mwenesi, why do you keep asking about my mom, my dad? Why do you want to always hang out with them? So that I can just download a little bit. I'm like, and I learned so much from them. Some of them, there were guys who were CEOs. I remember there was a guy who was the head of the National Olympic Committee for South Africa at the time. There was another guy who was the head of Nestle, another guy who had his own car dealership, another guy who was a club promoter, another guy who was a boxing promoter, another gentleman who was an ambassador. So I used to go and sit with these guys. While I'm there, of course, I'm here to visit you, my friend who is my age, and we're here to hang out. But if you come into the room and you're there just for 5 minutes, I just want to sit with you and ask you, oh, sir, excuse me, you know, how did you do this? Just give me a few things. So I would steal bits of time with my friends' parents just to understand how they were. And that's, I think, for me, that's why I'm, even now, a lot of my friends and people who are not just my clients, but I hang out with are much older than me, because I'm constantly trying to understand how did you guys maneuver? You know, you youngsters who are there with me now, we're in the same boat. We're just two, but I want to know, you didn't make the money. I want to know from the guy who is in charge of you, how did they make it? So if I can speak from my own experience, that's how I did it. And I ended up having a bunch of guys, maybe 20, 30 different people in different sectors, where I was just drinking from their fountains of wisdom, pole pole, kidogo kidogo. And that's how I did it. So if you have the opportunity to do that, that's just my style.
I think I think there's a saying, I can't remember who said it, but if you're the wisest guy in your group, you're in the wrong group. You need to jump out. I actually believe that in my experience, again, the same as you do, majority of the people that I am with are actually older than me, have more experience, have gone before me, and I seek them out. And one of the tools that I've found, and I've seen it with you as well, you may not know it, but I've seen it with you, is that when you're looking for someone to mentor you, you're looking for value from them. But one of the best tools I've found is that if you can be of value to them, you have time. And they're always looking for someone to send around to do that extra job. No problem. One of my mentors, I used to be his driver. And what happened is you're in the car and you're driving around with this person, you're picking up on those, but I was useful to him.
Correct.
I was not just coming into the room and saying, hey, can you mentor me? Give me everything. No, I'm here to be of value to you, but I know the value exchange will be much greater than that.
Absolutely.
And I've seen you do the same thing. One question from the chat box, Charles is asking Mwenesi, give us a book that you would suggest, one of your favorite books that would help young men on their journey.
Hands down, I have repeated this book. I have preached about it. It is my mini financial Bible, The Richest Man in Babylon. Read that book. It changed my thinking when I think I was like, I stumbled upon it when I think I was 16 or 17. And when I started applying those principles, I mean, it's a short book, it's tiny, it's not a big read, but it is just jam-packed with just practical, straight to the point nuggets of wisdom. It reviews the Babylonians, who in the Bible were like the wealthiest society at the time, and how they made decisions about money. So to this day, as we are speaking now, I am still applying those principles, and of course I do draw every now and then from Centonomy, from different people. So but for me, if there's one book I can recommend, it's The Richest Man in Babylon. Read it; it's good for your health.
Amazing, Mr. Mwenesi Musalia. You didn't even mention that you're a lawyer. I mean, you know, these are things that people need to know. When we call people into this room, we're not calling just the run-of-the-mill people. These are the kind of things that you're a lawyer, but you're doing image consulting and soft skills training. Your journey is different, isn't it, for everybody?
Yes. 100%. I studied, like I said, I tried to go and get I tried to do a BCom because I was interested in business. But when they told me I need to do an entrance exam that had 90% mathematics, I told them it's never that serious. So I decided to go to my next option, which is law. My father is a lawyer, and I decided, let me do something where at least it doesn't require too much thinking. Then I realized there's a thing called procedure, so I gave up on that as well. But I finished because, you know, my parents had invested a lot of money to say that our son is going to be a lawyer. So I said, fine, let me finish for you guys. And then I realized, okay, in life, and this is part of what I teach now as an image consultant, as a branding person, in life, you will be judged on how people perceive you. And I realized that the people who say they have a master's degree, already the perception goes from here to here. So I decided, just for the sake of my perception, and also so that I can be, you know, when I speak in a boardroom, I have more bass, I have more, you know, I have a master's in commercial law.
Yeah,
I did it. So I also have a master's in law, but I mean, a lot of those things, yes, they're helping me now. I negotiate my own contracts. I don't have to pay a lot of legal fees, but in the main, I did law, but I realized that my passion, my love is helping people become better versions of themselves. And that's what I am blessed to do today. And I hope for the rest of my life. So,
my brother, as always, a pleasure. May God bless you as you continue to help young men. Let's continue the discussion. Please go into the chat box. Mwenesi, there's a couple of questions you might be able to respond to directly. Check it out on Facebook. I want to say a big thank you to Ivy. Ivy, I know it's for men today, but you said, Ivy, I am in Kikuyu, and I'm watching on behalf of 3 of my sons. So there are some ladies who are also watching and participating. If you can respond to some of those, it would be great. As always, a pleasure, my brother. We'll talk shortly. Our next speaker, I'm so excited to invite. And I was struggling with the name, but I saw a thumbs up, so it meant I must have gotten it right. Katleho Mohono, I believe, and he's a leadership and development consultant at the Catalyst Effect in South Africa. We're truly doing this on a global basis, but this is really for Africans. I know we have some people in other places, but this is for Africans. So Katleho, this is your time. I know you're here to share your experiences, and also especially from the direction on leadership. So karibu sana. This is your first time at Centonomy, so I'm so glad to have you here with us. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Waithaka. It's such a pleasure. Yeah, I mean, actually, this is the second time I'm spending time with the Centonomy family, so it's really, really exciting. No, not at all. I mean, it's really exciting to be back, and must say, I'm just like, you know, in the same way Mwenesi was saying that, like, the work you guys are doing is really, really inspiring. In similar ways, you know, thinking around. I mean, I've got a younger brother who I feel like I'm mentoring now, and he's reading a lot. And there's a lot of the stuff that, you know, you do wish you had received much earlier. So thank you very much once again for the opportunity. And yeah, and Mwenesi, thank you so much for that reflection. And believe it or not, I'm a fellow Vitsi as well. So I guess we have a lot in common. And the beauty of these like spaces is, you know, building that network. So we definitely will be chatting after this. But yeah, just by way of introduction, as you're saying, Waithaka, my name is Katleho Mohono. So yeah, you got it. Like, we'll give you 95% because South Africans will use
good enough. Good enough.
Yeah,
so the tongue well enough.
Yeah, you got the Kenyan version, right? Because yeah, the South African version is Katleho, but you know that, yeah, it gets deep, you know. But yeah, the Kenyan version, yeah, most of my friends, Kenyan friends, call me Katleho, so that works for it. But yeah, that's who I am. I'm really just a young person who's passionate about development, passionate about growth, passionate about leadership development. Yeah, I mean, I've worked over the last 5-6 years in the space of leadership development, but in many ways, I think of leadership development as the vehicle for what is my true passion, which is personal development. And I really believe actually at the heart of any true leadership development is personal development. And I'll unpack that briefly. So similar to Mwenesi, I did study at Wits. Similar to Mwenesi, again, studied law, but I then did my law in it with a focus also, my law, but I also did industrial psychology and management as well. And that really led me into a space of social entrepreneurship. So I knew from very early on that I wanted to make money, but I also wanted to make an impact. So I always lived in that, you know, polarity of wanting to make an impact, but also make money. And I found that in the space of social entrepreneurship. Started initially, funny enough, a t-shirt business, which then moved into a consulting business where I was doing consulting work for NGOs. And that transitioned me when a friend of mine was starting an online learning platform where I helped her build that. And then randomly met this guy called Fred Swanika, who had this crazy dream of building, you know, Africa's first, or one of Africa's first leadership development institution. And at that time, he was just talking about the idea. We met in Joburg. I joined the team. I was still very young, probably I was like 24, and I was part of the founding team. And it was a very small team of about like, 8, 9, 10 of us. And, you know, that was a very important part of my journey. And, you know, you guys were talking about mentorship. One of the reasons I joined Fred on the journey had nothing to do with the paycheck I was getting. I don't even remember what my first paycheck was, but it was because of the growth opportunity, right? And maybe as a starting insight, the importance of really thinking about growth opportunities, not just taking things because of the short-term returns, but what is the long-term return? And sometimes the long-term return financially seems small in the beginning. And that, I must be honest, was the best decision I made in my life. Joined the team, played different roles, man. I played roles from HR intern to HR admin to student life but where I really found my passion and my calling and my space in the institution was in designing and delivering the school's entrepreneurial leadership course. So for 3-4 years, I worked specifically in the entrepreneurial leadership department, designing courses and delivering it, and then moved into a more senior leadership role in founding an institution there we call the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership. I then later on moved to Nairobi, actually, where I was part of the founding team of ALX, which is ALX and now The Room in Nairobi, and then transitioned after a year or two and it was just the timing where I really had the feeling in me that it was time to start my own thing. So I made that transition and right now work as a consultant in my own company called The Catalyst Effect. So that just gives you an idea of who I am. I'll also be covering really mainly 3 things. One, I'll share some of the challenges I've observed personally, in my own journey, let me start actually, not challenges, let's start with the mistakes. So some of the mistakes that I see leaders make, and I'll share some of my own reflections, but also as a consultant who gets to work with a very wide range of leaders, will share some insights that might be helpful to some people. Two, I will share some of the challenges I've observed. And then lastly, I'll just share some reflections on money and leadership that I believe might be helpful to young leaders who are on this call. But maybe to start off, leadership, because, when I was asked, anytime I get asked to talk about leadership, because it's this big thing, whenever it's like leadership, hey, it's like, hey, some deep stuff, man, So I just want to, just start off by just really laying the foundation for what or maybe let's actually switch it a bit. Let me ask you guys on the call right now, when you think about the word leadership, what's the one word that comes to your mind? So in the chat, please type it in the chat. So when you hear leadership, what comes to mind?
Yeah. So in the chat box here on Zoom, I know we've got quite a few people. Samuel, thank you. There's lots coming in already, Katleho. I hope you're.
Yeah, I'm seeing them. I see power, influence.
Also on Facebook. Yeah.
I love it. Even on Facebook.
I'll be checking out the comments there. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And these are all the words, right? And a lot of times it's about like power, it's about prestige, it's about governance, it's about authority. But here are a few things I want to just establish about leadership. The three things I want to establish is, one, leadership is more about impact than it is about title, right? Often when people talk about leadership, the immediate assumption is that it's about the title you hold. So I am a leader if I am CEO, I am a leader if I'm manager. But really leadership, true leadership, is about the impact you make, right? And Robin Sharma has this, a beautiful book, if you ever get a chance to read it. It's like The Leader Without a Title, right? And in the book, he frames out a powerful insight that like leadership really is not about title, but it's really about the influence. And I saw the word influence you have, but the impact you have as well. And so that's just the first establishment, that leadership is not about title, but it's about impact. Secondly, leadership is more about posture than it is about position, right? Another reflection there is that often, especially on the African continent, we so easily follow people because of their position and not posture. And when I say posture, I mean like the how the person stands, right? They're not like literally, but in the sense of what do they stand for, right? How do they, what's their values? Are they integrous? Are they people who stand for something even when they stand alone, right? And the problem in the continent is, again, we've got an obsession with positionality and not enough on posture, right? And we'll talk a bit more on that. And the third thing for me then, that leadership, and it kind of seems to go with the other ones, but that leadership is more about results than it is about rank, right? That often, again, we have even in organizations that people try to climb rank, and rank is good, if it serves anything, but if it's not driven to results, it's useless. So I just want to establish that, right? But then the other thing I want to establish about leadership is, again, because it's not about positionality, is that leadership happens everywhere. So often when I speak to young people, there's this assumption that one day I will be a leader, right? Like a lot of people say, once I have the position, once I have this, I will lead, right? Yeah. But for me, my hypothesis of leadership is that leadership happens every day, right? Every single day. If you are part of a family, you are leading, right? If you are, part of a study group, there's a leadership opportunity there. If you at home, right? If you are in like when you become, there's so many like opportunities to lead. And church, right? Where there's so many opportunities, but also in society. And this is where in South Africa, in Africa, we lack civil leadership, right? Civil society, because we often, again, because of the assumption that leadership is positionality, we then immediately would be like, oh no, it's government, right? Government will lead, right? But forgetting that, hey, in your area, how are you making use of leadership? So that is just to establish that base. The other thing I'll say about leadership is that the philosophy I hold about leadership is that leadership happens in fundamentally three specific areas, right? There are three kinds or three spaces that one needs to think about how they lead in, right? So if we've established that everyone is a leader, right? You could just be a bad leader, but everyone is leading. And that actually the most important leadership role you'll ever have, and this This, if you forget everything I say, here's the most important thing I will say today. The most important leadership role that you have is the role of leading yourself, right? When you fail to lead yourself, don't try lead anyone else, right? So there are three then important levels of leadership, right? Level one, or not levels, but level areas of leadership. The first area of leadership is self-leadership, right? So it's self-leadership, leadership and with or of others, and then leadership of systems. So self-leadership for me is that ability to lead yourself, right? It's really about, and I would say it's the most important, as I was saying, the most important leadership role you play. And it's really about, at the heart of it is Daniel Goldman's, idea of emotional intelligence, right? And it's sad again that we live in a world where there's a lot of
Excuse me, please, Mr. Waithaka, can you enable us?
Sorry about that.
No worries.
If you have a question, just kindly type it in the chat box, then we can be able to assist you from there. Just kindly type it in the chat box, but go ahead, Katleho.
No worries. Please, yeah, guys, this is a conversation, so it's not a sermon, but you can say amen, if it resonates with you. No, I'm just joking, right? But here's where we were saying. So first is self-leadership, and at the heart of developing self-leadership is developing emotional intelligence. And again, a great resource to check out is Daniel Goleman's, emotional intelligence, wheel, right? And this really is around self-awareness, right? It's so sad how, a lot of us as Mwenesi and Waithaka, as you were saying, some of us know more about Jay-Z and Beyonce than we know about ourselves, right? We invested more in, how much keeping up with the Carters and keeping up with the, what was the Kardashians than we are about keeping up with, me, right? So that's the first, area of leadership that you want to master, that you want to build, that you want to strengthen, right? Asking yourself, how do I become the best leader of myself? The second area of leadership is the leadership of engaging others. So how do you, and again, when I say, and I use the word not people leadership, but engaging others as a frame, because what I find is that often people assume that leadership is about having authority other people, or having power of people, but really the heart of leadership is being able to influence other people. But that does not necessarily always mean you have to be on top, right? And so engaging others or leading with others is that ability to know who you are, know the impact and influence you bring into a space, but being able to collaborate and work with others to bring about, impact and change. The third area of leadership is around systemic leadership, right? And when I say systemic leadership is, again, all of us, again, wherever you find yourself, you are part of a system, right? Like your family is a system. Your company is a system. Your campus that you're part of is a system. Your church is a system. Your country is a system. The world is a system. And so what systems leadership is really about is about understanding the systems in which you exist and then being able to understand your influence and impact on those systems, right? And this is where an area that a lot of people also are like, I often teach about is political leadership. And it's sad that like political leadership has been marred now with like politics and bad governance. But the truth is, if you are human and you engage with other humans, you are part of a political system, right? Even in your family, I'm telling you, there's family politics, right? So systemic leadership in that context is being able to understand your place in that system and how to effectively engage it, right? So that was just to lay the ground that we understand, so that one, leadership is not about title, it's not about rank, it's not about position, but it's really about how you show up and how you influence. But also that there are three areas of leadership, right? That there's self-leadership, which is leading self, there's leading with others or engaging others, and then the third, which is system and understanding system. Now, I'm going to quickly share, I know I'm running out of time here, but I'm going to quickly share some mistakes, and I'll do headliners and then maybe we can unpack them a bit later. So a couple of mistakes that I've seen a lot of young leaders make, and we'll kind of connect it to even our money conversation, is one is that a lot of people then assume that leadership is about them, right? So as soon as someone gets into a position, they make it all about them and they forget. And I saw someone in the chat saying like, it's about service. That for me, the highest level of leadership is learning how to serve others, right? Once you get that right, you've got leadership right, because leadership is really about service, right? That's a big mistake that I see. And I often say when I coach a lot of my clients, a lot of my students, I say, get out of the way, right? The art of leadership is being able to set up things and get out of the way. Because when your ego is in the way, when you are in the way, leadership doesn't happen. The second one is, and linked to what Mwenesi was saying, was that the big mistake I've seen a lot of young leaders make, as I've also shared, is not investing in themselves, right? And Mwenesi started to touch on this, but I'll just unpack it a bit further, that the most important investment you will ever make is not property, right? I know I'll get into trouble. Centonomy, I'm really sorry, right? It's not property, it's not shares, it's not bonds. The most important investment you can ever make in your life is the investment you make in yourself.
You're
right?
not in trouble at all. In fact, if anything,
okay, so we still think
that is our business. We're here to help you build yourself so that you can build those things.
Exactly. And I almost to say, Waithaka, that like, it's once you've built yourself that it's easier to build the other things, right? Once you've expanded that capacity to carry, because you see a lot of people, they make the money, but because they haven't built the character, they haven't built the intelligence, they haven't built the wisdom, the money crushes them, right? So I'd rather have wisdom that, you know, so just to put that in context. So that's the most important. And in this age, especially in our 20s, right? Your 20s are probably the best time to invest in yourself, right? Like it's like the most important and significant time to invest in yourself. Read, listen to podcasts, watch documentaries, but really invest in yourself, right? The third mistake that I've made personally, and that I've seen a lot of people make, and it's a quick concept I'll share and I'll ask everyone to do more research on, is not managing your pie, right? And now people, like, every time I share this, people are like, my pie? What pie? Like, which cottage pie? Cheese spinach? What kind of pie are you talking about, right? The framework of pie is actually a frame that came from General Electric a few years ago. And pie is an acronym actually for, P is for performance, I is for image, and E is for exposure, right? And often what I see young leaders, especially as they come into organizations, do is they work hard, or they're doing their best, but they are not doing well in managing their pie. And, you know, something that Mwenesi speaks about is this, you know, image and whatever. So let me break it down. So performance is really saying, when you manage your pie, so you as an employee, you as someone who's coming into an organization who's adding value, needs to think of your value in the context of like the pie thingy, right? So always asking, how is my performance? How am I performing? How am I showing up and delivering, right? Because a lot of people, you know, I've worked with people and I'm like, dude, deliver, just deliver. Like, that's all you have to do. Do the work, right? Like, you know, sometimes some of us, we want to get mad, but just do the work. That's all you have to do. Do the work, right? So that's performance. But the second thing linked to performance is image, right? Now, I've seen a lot of people who work hard, right? Like they work so hard, but they don't manage their image. And right, when Mwenesi is saying, right? And part of managing your image is what Mwenesi is saying around like getting that degree that gives you that exposure, right? You know, like grooming, guys, let's just talk about it, right? Like grooming and looking good, right? Like, let's just call it out, right? Like, guys, right? And you don't have to do much, right? So managing your image and making sure you've got a clear, like you show up, right? Because people, again, it's how you show up. So you could be great at your job, but if you show up, and part of that image as well is then working and going back to how to working on yourself. If you know you don't speak well publicly, take a public speaking course, go on YouTube, learn how to speak, you know, do that kind of thing, join Toastmasters, right? And then the third piece is exposure, right? And where I've seen, I mean, over the years, I've managed teams and I've seen there's like rock star people who just don't climb up to the level they should, because they maybe work hard, right? And people know that they work hard, but they are not given the exposure they need, right? And sometimes exposure is really about getting visibility where it really matters. And this, for me, in the first few years of my career, I mean, I was a workaholic, worker bee, but never got, you know, the growth that I was supposed to get professionally because I didn't manage my pie. So, I mean, I could talk more into it, go online and just Google managing your pie, and it will give you some good readings. But just that's a big mistake I see people make. And then the last mistake, and then moving on to the other things, is people don't ask, right? Like, you know, there was this like meme or something that's like, just ask, you know, just ask, just ask, right? So just ask, man, you know, and asking is just like, it's such an important thing. And asking is just shows curiosity, right? And so many of us are so afraid to ask, and then we make so many mistakes. And spaces like this, Centonomy gives you a space to have access to people like Mwenesi, who you can just ask, right? So just ask, right? Now, some of the challenges I've seen, I'll just mention two. One thing, I'll do a very weird sidebar plug here. I run a podcast. So if you're into podcasts, I've got a podcast called As You Lead. And it's conversations with young millennial leaders. And so the idea of the podcast is conversations, we're not going to go find the CEO of something, but we're finding people like you and me who share their reflections as they're leading, not once they've led, but as they're leading, and it makes it more real. So if you want to check out something, check out that podcast, As You Lead. But I mention it because we did some research, user research, and we found out that the two main things that many young leaders struggle with in the early time of their leadership, in their, especially millennial leaders, one is balance, right? So once people start to move into the area of leadership, they struggle with balance. And you know, one of the key things that I've kind of, let me share both of them and then we'll come back. So one is balance. And the second one is then leading and building teams, or rather interpersonal issues, right? So one is personal balance, and two is it's interpersonal challenges. And just to share some insights, because Esther asked me to share some insights on these two issues. One was with balance. Some advice or insights or things that I found is most important for young leaders to think about is, if you think about yourself again as the most important asset you have, right? And this is another important thing. You are the most important asset you have, right? Like, no, seriously, like if you buy property, it's good, property is good, but you are the most important asset you have, right? So if that premise is true, I want to then say that you do need to then think about how do you not just invest in yourself, but take care of yourself, right? So like, it's one thing, so let's use property. It's one thing to buy property, but property management is a different thing. Because if you buy a good property, but it gets run down, its value depreciates, right? Basic logic. And I think we don't use the same in ourselves to say, there's one thing, and you know, women get, as you guys were saying, women are great at this. You know, I've got a younger sister as well, great at this. What do they call it? Self-love or self-care, you know? Us, we don't do the self-care. Self-care for what? Self-care is just getting some booze, drinking, you know, but what it's really about, guys, what it's really about is it's really replenishing yourself, right? And Stephen Covey, oh yeah, I've actually got the book here. In the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he actually speaks about this idea of like sharpening the axe, right? And the metaphor he makes is that if I give you a forest to chop down and I give you an axe, what do you do? Most people would just go in and start like, you know, but he says actually the smartest thing is to stop and take time to regularly sharpen the axe, right? And again, it's like, what are your practices or habits of regularly sharpening your axe? So I want to just, especially with balance, remind young people and young leaders to regularly build practices of sharpening the axe. And some of the most important ones are the basics, like sleeping, guys. You know, when we, like, as young people, always like, we don't sleep, you'll sleep when you're dead. Okay, yeah, die soon then, you know, right? You know, kind of thing. Or not drinking enough water, right? Not taking care of our health, right? Not exercising. So it's just important to really take care, sharpen the axe. Then the other piece, which is building interpersonal relationships, I would say the most important investment you can make is in understanding emotional intelligence, right? EQ, right? Because in all interpersonal relationships and interpersonal dynamics really start with understanding emotional intelligence, because I first understand my emotions and the triggers and the things that affect me, and then I know how to engage others, right? So those are the challenges. Now, I know I'm running out of time, Waithaka, so I will close with just sharing then some reflections and perspectives or insights I've had or thoughts I've been thinking around when it comes to wealth, leadership, wealth, and living a full life, right? Because again, they're not separate if you think about it, right? Like all these things are all intertwined, right? And so a few things that I will share. One is that you need to reflect on where your ideas of money come from, right? Or what informs your thinking about money, right? A lot of us have good intentions on money, but will always be hindered by how our background or some of our subconscious ideas of money affect us, right? So just encouraging everyone to take time to actually think like, where does my philosophy or my idea, or even what is my philosophy of money, right? And where does it come from? Yeah, like I see Nicola saying, money traumas. A lot of us, have money traumas, and really need to really unpack those for ourselves. The second thing is understanding that money is a tool, right? I feel like a lot of people often miss that money helps you do things. It's not the thing, right? And it's literally, money is just a piece of paper, right? But you need to understand that money is the tool, right? The third one linked to that is that money cannot fill holes, right? Or let me phrase it like this. If you've got holes in your life, money is a tool that can help mend those holes, but the work of filling those holes is an impersonal, So if you've got insecurities, like no amount of money, Donald Trump, will help you deal with those, insecurities, right? If you've got low self-esteem, there is no amount of money that will help you fill it. But money is then a tool that can help you. So I'm not saying don't have money, but again, think of it as a tool. The fourth one, and then I've got five. So the fourth one is that wealth is not just about money, right? Wealth, think about, and going back to that, like truly wealthy people are people that are wealthy in all areas of their life. And even now, you can do a wealth assessment by asking yourself, how is my social capital, right? Like, how are my relationships? Do I have strong relationships? How is my intellectual capital, right? How is my, how am I growing and developing myself to be the best intellectual version? How's my spiritual capital, right? How centered and grounded am I, right? And then how's my financial capital, right? And like that also is like a piece of capital, right? But again, we often meet a lot of people. I work with a lot of clients who have a lot of money, but like have terrible relationships, right? Or are unhappy with their spouses, right? And so again, it's about making sure that your wealth is balanced. And then the last piece is that saving, and I've learned this the hard way, that saving is less an act or an action and is a habit, right? Like if you can't save a small amount of money, it becomes harder to save greater amounts of money, because as you climb higher in a career or it's like crazy, I remember getting my first promotion and thinking, I will have more money. Did my lifestyle not show up and say, oh, okay, we out here, right? So you need to understand that, like, if you build a saving habit, it will take you so no amount of promotion, because I see people, it's like you get promoted, but you're still caught in the same debt cycle because you haven't built a habit. So just to encourage everyone to build that saving habit, and get out of the debt cycle. Yeah, so I know I've said a lot. I talk a lot. I mean, I get paid to talk, so I sometimes can, I say a lot. But I hope more than anything that this has been helpful to someone. I mean, again, just encouraging everyone to please, do check out our podcast if you want to hear more of such conversations. I do have a website as well where I post some blogs and some reflections. So also feel free to check that out. And yeah, please do keep in touch. Hit me up on LinkedIn, and it's such a pleasure to be hanging out with you guys. I'm really so happy to be here. Thank you, Waithaka.
Wow. And when you started talking, I've been trying to multitask at the same time, and as guys, we're not the best at multitasking, so I may have missed a few things along the way. But I loved so many of the initial things that you mentioned that you didn't think were part of your presentation, just about yourself, that I think touched me the most. I think that you talked about quite a few things, and it was a theme that Mwenesi talked about as well, the changes in your businesses and your career, and the number of things that you went through. I felt that it seemed to me it was a journey of discovery. And I think many of us are not willing to go through that journey of discovering what we're meant to do or what we're really good at. And I wanted to, maybe if you could address that, Katleho, for a second, just talk about describing that journey of discovery. Because I feel there's a lot of pressure that I'm in school, I need to know what I'm supposed to do right now. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I'm in school, I need to know what career I'm going for, and this is all I'm meant to be. I love that we have two lawyers who are teaching soft skills, and a guy who did media and communications who's teaching about money, and the gentleman who's coming up next who also did film, but he's a farmer. I mean, this is what life is about.
Yeah.
So talk about that journey of discovery just for a few seconds as we
Yes, no, man, spot on. I want to, two things I will say. One is that, yeah, I mean, don't put full pressure. There's research that shows that almost 80% of people who are in fulfilling careers now are not doing what they studied, right? So study is important. I'd say like studying is important, but it's not an end in itself. It's just a way to continue to grow. Secondly, you know, a part of the story I didn't share is that part of self-discovery is also being willing to take major risks and failing, right? You know, part of my story is the fact that when I got to third year, so Mwenesi tells about how he finished his degree. So I didn't finish my law degree. And part of the reason why is that when I got to third year, I was like, I mean, I was, you know, president of Golden Key, vice president of Golden Key, and Golden Key is like, you know, the institution that awards like the top 10% of like the smartest kids on campus or whatever, right? But I could have finished that degree for other people, but I had to say, wait. Why am I doing this? And when I realized I was not passionate about the law, right? And I had to take a risk. Now, if there are any parents here, please don't misunderstand me here, or even the students. I'm not saying drop out, but for me, I had to pause. I had an existential reality where I was like, I could either continue and finish, and I do encourage people to finish. And I actually am planning to finish my LLB once I've got my PhD, because I realized, well, I could, you know, go one direction and finish, or do what I really am passionate about, right? So I'm now in the process of doing my postgraduate in the stuff I'm passionate. So I moved into human management because I realized I was passionate about people. But so that's one. Two is, you know, Steve Jobs speaks about this, right? This whole like constant pursuit of self-discovery, right? And he then speaks in his talk about like, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back, right? And the only advice I can give to anyone is like, any moment counts, right? Like, I'll tell you, when I met Fred, it was like a random conversation, like the most random conversation, but because I showed up fully and I was asking questions. I mean, he was at a conference, we're at a conference, and I was the only person who asked him questions, but I asked him hard questions, right? And off the back of that, he was like, let's talk, right? Now, I never thought that that would be an opportunity that would define the rest of my life, but I showed up fully, right? And that's the thing, that with life, you never know, but if you are faithful, and you know, the Bible talks about this, like faithful in the little, right? It's like, whatever thing you have, just work at it with all you have, you know? And for me, I think that's been the journey of self-realization, which is like faithfulness, being willing to take risks, but also not being afraid to fail. So yeah, that's the reflection there. Like,
to all the brothers who are listening right now, if you don't take that away, because for all the men who are speaking right now, we've been through a journey. We've tried it. We have failed. But the thing about it is, now I love Katleho. You're wonderful at quoting people directly. People will have to Google some of these ones that I'm saying. But the idea of failing forward, because sometimes we find ourselves thinking that failure is the end. No, it's just one of those steps as we move forward. I think you have to find that one. Who said it? I'll look for it as we go on. But
it was John C. Maxwell.
There we go. Hey, obviously I was not in that top tier of the school. You know, the readers like yourself.
You know, Golden Key guys are different.
Golden Key, yeah. First, that's on our level.
Hey, Baba.
So I have one of the questions is, all those books on your shelf behind there, somebody was just was marveling at them. I was telling them, just take a screenshot and then go find them online and take them. But your speech was amazing. Your insights were great. Please go through the comments on Facebook and on Zoom, which we're on right now. A couple of things that you can respond directly to. And I think they make a huge difference even as we go forward. I'll take one more thing, two things actually from what you said. And please, in case you're not taking notes, take this down. You talked about that if you don't solve your internal problems, money only enhances them. It only magnifies them. And we've seen that at Centonomy. We've trained guys earning 10,000 shillings, which is what? That's about $100 or so a month. And we've trained people earning 1 million shillings, which is $10,000 a month. And you find them with the same issues. We had this guy who was in class, and he's now a senior executive. I won't tell you in which company, but he's earning over $10,000 a month. Okay, so he's earning good money. what he found was when he was younger, he used to take a drink with the boys at the local pub where a beer is only about $1.50 or 150 shillings. So he got a promotion. Then he moved to the club now in Westlands, where the same beer is worth 450 shillings. All right. And so now he's spending more on the same thing, but it's just in a different environment. He got another promotion, which meant that he was in the club now, in the country club. And in the club, he's the only member. So he has to invite his boys to come over. And the beer there is twice as much. It's close to $6, between $6 and $7 or so. And he doesn't buy shots anymore. He buys the bottle. So he was finding himself spending $800 on alcohol. And he's not an alcoholic in a month. And he was wondering, why is that so? Because he had never understood how to do that balance. So the same problems you carry along the way. The last thing I took away from you, Katleho, you said this: be present. I am always surprised. That's why we have to mute the entire group on Zoom, because right now, I know young men, you've got you're watching this and you've got the TV on that side, you've got other things going on, you're having conversations, you're not here. And I'm trying to get guys to be as silent as possible, focus for a while on one thing. Our attention is too diverse. So if you're one of those guys who's watching the telly, you've got your Twitter going on this side, got Facebook. I know we said the hashtags, don't be too worried about those things. Be present. It's the time to be present. And thank you so much, Katleho. I really appreciate it. For everyone who was watching other things, you can say, now I'm present. Just type it in the chat box or in the, especially on the comments in Facebook. Be present, be here with us, because the next speaker is also going to add some real gems to the conversation. Katleho, I'm really grateful for that, the speech that you've given us. Whoops, where did my presentation? There we go. Our next speaker is Eugene Mbugua. He's a managing director at Documentary and Reality TV Limited, but he is an entrepreneur with lots of business experience, even as such a young man. Eugene, I think you're probably the youngest of us here. I always get embarrassed but you have to say how old you are so people understand when I mention a few things.
I'm 29 years old now. I'm turning 30 in about a month.
Do you see that I am now 10 years your senior, and I've not yet been listed on Forbes, on any Forbes list in Africa. I've not yet been listed even in Kenya and on top. I don't know what I need to do, but I'm also here to learn from you, my junior, and probably there are lots of 20-year-olds who are listening to you right now. Can I preempt your speech for a second, if you don't mind?
Yes, please.
You gave a talk one time, and it really had an impact on me. Because people know you for your amazing businesses. They know you for those things that are out there in the public. What I didn't know about you is that you didn't start with that successful business. What I loved was that when you were in campus, that you used to sell DVDs, and you were selling DVDs to raise capital to do the business that you wanted to do. So DVD business was not your ultimate goal or passion, but you wanted to build something. Tell us a bit about that before you start, and then go into your speech. That one really touched me.
Actually, Waithaka, when I saw the group that you've invited me to speak to, everything that I'm going to speak about today is around my campus years and how all those opportunities led to where I am now. So maybe you can do introductions, then I can jump straight into that, because it's all I'm going to give you.
Wonderful, wonderful. As I said, the introduction was that. Eugene, as you know, if I list everything, I was going through your profile. Let me try and go through your profile. You're the managing director, documentary and reality TV. Not only that, you own a popular bar. That is number 7. You have Bullock's Farm. You've been on the Forbes Most Promising Entrepreneurs, Forbes Africa Top 30 Under 30. Business Daily Top 40 Under 40. Kalash, I mean, no, look, there's a limit. If I continue,
we'll be here until tomorrow.
There's a limit, man.
All right, I'll get to it, Waithaka. So for the purposes of this talk, because I can explain how I ended up where I am, I think my main business is TV production, and we run a company called Documentary and Reality TV. Also, Waithaka, I speak very fast, so if you see me rambling, please tell me to calm down. And our company produces a bunch of television shows for the Kenyan market and also in a few countries in Africa. Some of our shows, our first TV show was Young Rich in 2013. Then we've had, that was on K24. Then we've had Get in the Kitchen. We've had Our Perfect Wedding. We've had Story Yangu. We've had Foods of Kenya. We've had Being Bahati. Just this year, we had a show called Concert Nyumbani that made history. It was the biggest television event in Kenyan history because it broadcast at the same time on 11 TV stations. It was called Concert Nyumbani. And the newest baby is Soul Family, which is a reality show on Sauti Soul that airs every Sunday on Maisha Magic Plus. And you can find it on Showmax and YouTube as well. But I need to begin here. This has been, I think, 11 years now. I've been in the industry, in TV production for 11 years. And I'm only going to speak, I don't know very much about money, Waithaka, so I'm only going to speak about entrepreneurship.
Just that you've made so much of it. Okay, no worries, no worries.
I don't know much about its management. It's funny because I'm very good at making it, but I wouldn't claim to be an expert at managing it, which is why we have you, Waithaka. So I started my journey in entrepreneurship in 2009. Actually, 2008 to be fair, because I finished high school in 2008, and I was 17 at the time. I hadn't turned 18 yet. And I'm going to speak about the 3 opportunities that came to me in a period of about 4 years between that when I finished high school and when I eventually, I would say, got my break. And all these opportunities did seem like opportunities at the time, but looking back, I can see that there were opportunities in disguise. And I hope that a lot of you listening here, I imagine, are in campus, and I hope that this will give you sort of a scope to be able to spot opportunities in your own life. So the first opportunity that I got was after I cleared high school, and I was 17 at the time, as I mentioned. In Kenyan culture, and I don't know if it's the same Mohono in South Africa, in the Kenyan culture, as soon as you finish high school, your parents always tell you to go off and find something to do. I think for a lot of people in this period, you spend joining driving school, you go do some computer packages. Now for me, it was a bit different. I had a cousin who we lived with, and he worked at Inspector Mwale and Makutano Junction as a soundman. These are some old shows. So Inspector Mwale was, both of them was on Citizen TV, Makutano Junction and Inspector Mwale. He was a soundman, so that's the guy who records the sound. And I requested if I could join him on set. So he allowed me to, stag along with him to his workplace. And to be honest with you, this is where my opportunity for me with TV came in. It's not that I had a passion for it. I spent a few months with him on the set of the shows that he was working on. And initially I was doing this, the reason I went is because I didn't want to be at home. And I also wanted to sort of shut up my guardians about, to show that you're being proactive and you're looking for something. And this turned out to be a huge opportunity in disguise for me, because 2 things happened. The fact that your hand is held by a cousin or someone or a relative, it means the people in this place of work treat you with a bit more care. So people are more patient with your questions. They allow you to walk into rooms that ideally you wouldn't be able to walk into as a stranger. And I got a lot of this, so I was able to walk around, ask a bunch of questions. I was able to sit next to the director and just like as a kid would, point to things and ask what that is, repeat the word cut and action. And this played a huge role for me because I did it for so long, and being so young at the time and easy to mold, I really fell in love with film and TV. Another thing, to be honest with you, is I noticed that people on a film set did not wear shirts and they could grow their hair long. So, as an impressionable teenager, all these are very attractive things. So like, oh, you mean I don't have to wear a shirt? People are coming to work in shorts. They have dreadlocks. And it ended up, this small opportunity, my cousin allowing me to go with them to their place of work, I would say is what has led to everything else to this day. And I know for when you're younger, for a lot of people listening to this, when you're younger and you just you cleared high school, you're either in your late teens or early 20s, it often seems that there are no opportunities. However, my takeaway that I want you to take away from that is just from the people around you. How many of those careers can you go and just spend a day looking at? How many of your relatives can you be able to accompany them to their workplace and sort of gauge what seems interesting and what doesn't? And all of us here have relatives and friends and people around us who have careers and jobs. So for me, it worked out really well, just starting out with the people around me and seeing what they do. And I would encourage you to do the same. Now, after I went with my cousin to this film set, I learned how to be a boom swinger. A boom singer is, so anyway, on a film set, the lowest job you can start at is an extra. An extra is the guy who fills the background. When they're filming a scene, you have to pass by a bunch of times and act like it's a busy street. Or if it's a restaurant, you have to sit in the background and not talk, but act like you're talking. So this was the only job I could get at the time because I didn't even have an ID. And I did this for a long time. Well, not a long time, but a few months. Then I graduated to the next lowest job you could get, which is a boom singer. And I think there's an interview I did jointly with Waithaka, and I was showing him the job that I used to do with the microphone. So you hold that microphone all day. it's quite tiring work. Yeah, you don't need the gym at all. You don't need the gym at all. And I did this for maybe 2 years. I did this work on Waithaka Junction, again, where my cousin was working, because as soon as I got my ID, they could, so they could let me do it. It wasn't a problem. Then I graduated to a boom singer. Now, when I was boom singing, something happened. I got accepted to university as well. And while I was at university, I ran into my second opportunity that greatly changed my life. So I joined university, and the way I did it is I enrolled for evening classes, which means I had the rest of my day free. So I'd go to class at USIU between 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., but then I'd be at work from 6 a.m. to around 3:30 to 4, so I could beat traffic and be in class. Now, when I was at USIU, I was in my second year at USIU, and I was still doing all these odd jobs in the different film sets. Something interesting happened that did seem like an opportunity, but it was an opportunity. All of you will remember when the Mutuzo laws came into play. The Mutuzo laws, Mohono, for your sake, is we used to be able to drink anytime we wanted in Kenya. And then the government one day woke up, and there was this guy called Mutuzo. We all hated him at the time. He introduced these laws about when drinking hours could happen and when they couldn't. So all of a sudden, you couldn't drink before 5 p.m. and I think the bars had to close at 10. It was a bunch of rules. Now, in the university that I was in, what used to happen was you'd go to your classes. Everybody has, I think, about 6 hours of classes during the day. But in between classes, guys would go to the bars outside. There used to be one called 5-5 and another one called Fifis. And, they'd get drunk on cheap alcohol, like a lot of university students do. Now, when the Mutuzo laws came into play, all this stopped, particularly bars that were near schools were very heavily targeted, which means the implementation happened there fast. Now, I was among the ones who sometimes, when I wasn't working, would enjoy drinking during the day. So I remember one time I was around campus and I realized how miserable everyone was. Because sometimes you have class in the morning, maybe you have a class between 9 and 11, and your next class is at 3 p.m. So in between that period, what do you do? There's nothing to do. Now, and this is where I found my second opportunity. One of the bars was called 5-5, and all of a sudden they found that they had too much space because they don't need it anymore. So I approached these guys and I said to them, can I possibly sublet some of your unused bar space during the day? And I figured, when you're in a university campus, what do young men and women like to do? Well, the women like to watch movies and TV shows, and the men like to play video games. So I put together some money that I had been saving from these odd jobs, and I also got a few other friends to put in some money. And we set up what we called the game courts. Now, the game court was a place you could come, and there's a lot of them now. So we had 3 or 4 TV screens, and we had an Xbox and PlayStation. And then on the side, we also had, those pirated movies that you buy for 50 shillings on the DVDs. And we opened our doors, and as you can imagine, immediately, guys came because the market was right there. There was between morning and evening when you can drink and between classes, the guys came to play video games, and the girls who lived around school came to buy our pirated movies. I am not proud of that, by the way, considering now that I make money from TV shows. I'm not proud of my piracy days. So I hope all of you here will keep my secret for me. So that again, what did seem like an opportunity ended up being quite a huge opportunity for us. And again, as all of you listening here who might be in campus, I'm telling this story so you can just sort of see how opportunities come at you, even though they don't seem like opportunities sometimes. Sometimes they just seem like how would you call an interruption of your drinking, but it's actually an opportunity in disguise. Now, while I was still, so I ran a bunch of businesses while I was still in university, because remember I was a part-time student. So I was trying everything that I could get my hands on. And part of the reason I was doing this is because I had nothing to lose. At the time, my guardians were paying my school fees. With my odd jobs, I could afford my rent. And during those university years, what's the worst that could happen if I lost in business? One time I spent my university fees But luckily I didn't lose it. But the worst that could happen if I lost my business during that period is I'd simply just go back home and start again. There was no loss. I had no reputation to speak of. I had no real investments. I didn't have any employees. It was just me. There was nothing to lose. So I was trying out a bunch of things. Now, one of the things that I tried out during this period was, so I'm still doing odd jobs on different film sets whenever I could get them. So I was doing an extra here and there. But the thing about those jobs is they're not really jobs. You get called when the opportunity arises. Ni kama kazi ya mjengo. So when there's work, there's work. When there isn't, there isn't. So on the spare time, I was running this shop and I hired someone to sit there all day, which means I still had my day free. A friend of mine and I at the time, we were both extras on Mohono Junction. We'd spend a lot of time doing that background work. And if you're an extra, you will know that you only get called when the scene is on. So when they're not shooting your scene, you're seated somewhere. They used to call it the cow shed because it was an actual shed. So you're supposed to sit there all day and wait for your turn. So I met a friend there. His name is Dexter. His name is actually Peter, but we call him Dexter because he had all these crazy ideas. So Dexter and I, we thought, who knows, what can we do with this little knowledge that we have from this film set? Because we knew the basics. We knew how to point the camera. We knew where the sound mic goes because I was a boom singer. We knew when to say cut. We knew when to say action. And we said, we should be able to do something with this little information we have. And Dexter, being the genius that he is, he said, who might know less than us about this field? Primary school kids. And it was true. Regardless of who you are, if you're above 20, but primary school kids in most cases know less about you in the particular field you're in. So we said, we're going to take this information and package it and go teach primary school kids basic film. Yesterday, I posted a picture on my social media, and I was remembering 10 years ago when I was actually a teacher in primary school, teaching kids how to do basic film. So and you see, a business like this requires no capital. So we basically went on Wikipedia, learned some terms, printed some documents, borrowed some cameras. We went pitching to schools, and our pitch was very simple. They have music club in primary school, they have drama club. So we're going to introduce film club, but we're going to charge you a bit of money. So we introduced film club, and we had borrowed cameras, and you bring in some tripods so that you look for a bit fancy. We had printed some documents in a cyber cafe. I mean, the startup capital was like 2,000 bob. All the equipment was borrowed. And surprisingly, we were given the opportunity by McKinney School and St. Austin's and a few other schools because nobody was really doing it. And the kids were, they went to assembly and asked the kids, do you guys want to make movies? Of course, the kids said, yes, it sounds like a fun thing. So we got the job in McKinney School, I remember. And immediately we went in, we were charging about $30 per student per term. And immediately we went in, 30 kids signed up. But there was a problem. Between when they signed up, we only get paid at the end of the term, which is 3 months. Now, I have no money to go daily to teach because I have no transportation. I wasn't making that much money at the time. To be fair, I had some money. I just didn't have to spend on transport because I'm running a few businesses here. I'm a bit thin on money. So here's where my third opportunity came in, and which wasn't opportunity. Looking back, it didn't seem like opportunity. So I used to go to campus in USIU, which is on Thika Road. And I used to teach at McKinney School, which is on Ngong Road. Now, if you know this, you need to take about 3 matatus to get there because from 2 matatus and a motorbike. So from where I live to the stage, there's a motorbike. You pay maybe 50 shillings. From Resambo to town, it's a matatu. I think at the time it was 80 bob, 100 bob. I'm not too sure. And then from town to Ngong Road is another 100 bob. It's a bit expensive. That's one way. And then to go back, it's too much. So what I will do is I'll get to town and then walk to McKinney School. Sort of save on the coins. It was, and when I tell this story, please don't feel bad for me. At the time, it didn't feel like any work at all. It just seemed like what I had to do. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. But it's a long distance to walk. Now, what I will do is I will take shortcuts. So you go through Kilimani, Kileleshwa, you pass through Lavington, it's easier, and then you get to McKinney School. Now, what seemed like a suffering moment is what led to my biggest opportunity that sort of set me off. During the walks, you walk through these fancy neighborhoods, and I come from a very humble background. So Lavington and Kileleshwa seemed like very pristine places for me. And I'd walk by and I'd see all these fancy apartments. I remember one time I saw a signboard, 2-bedroom apartment for rent, 50,000 bob. And I was like, my goodness, who on earth in the world has 50,000 bob every month to spend on rent? And this every time I'd walk, it will fascinate me each time because every time, and when you're walking past, in Kenya, almost all compounds are fenced. So as you're walking by, you see a gate open, you sort of walk faster so you can peep in and see what's inside. And you see all these nice cars, BMWs and Mercedes-Benzes driving out. And I kept thinking, like, who are these people? And then the more I walked, because I was thinking a lot about it, I was a peeping Tom, you know, I'd sort of look at everybody when a car passes by, I'd sort of like try and see who's inside. I started to notice something very interesting. A lot of them were young. And this really started to bother me. Like, these guys don't look old at all, because I was used to, you know, people's parents who are rich. Like, someone's parents at the age of 50 driving a nice car, there's nothing to see there. But in Kileleshwa and Kilimani, and, you know, now as you know, Waithaka in Kenya, it's true because it's a younger population that lives there.
That's
I was
right.
still very,
Right.
I was very perplexed. Like, how are these people in their late 20s and early 30s? Like, who are they? Where did they get this money? And every day I walked by, it bothered me. Every week it bothered me. And this is how the idea for Young Rich came about. Young Rich was my first TV show that basically took me to where I am. Because I really wanted to know what these young people living in those apartments and driving those nice cars are making their money. And so as I'm going to my teaching job, I came up and wrote the concept for Young Rich. It was going to be this TV show that was going to basically interview and profile young entrepreneurs who've made some money, and they're going to tell us on the show how they did it. And I had a list of very detailed questions like, where did you start out? How much was your first capital? Who helped you along the way? And this project was very selfish for me. I wasn't doing it for the audience. I was doing it for myself. I wanted to understand. Like, I used to ask very basic questions like, so your first 100,000, Bob, what did you buy? What did you not buy? Which bank did you bank with? You know, like, I had these very intricate questions. And it turned out that a lot of people were also curious like me. So the show didn't sell immediately. There was a period of 2 years between me conceptualizing the show and eventually making it on air. But you see, the opportunity here was the walk-in, which didn't seem like the opportunity at the time, but ended up like giving me this concept. Now, I created the show and I pitched it around to almost everyone that I could pitch it to. Nobody at the beginning really wanted. So the show is about what? It's about young entrepreneurs saying what, telling us what. You know, at the time, documentary shows aren't really a big thing here. Now, interestingly, I pitched this show to a bunch of people, and in 2013, a month before I was set to graduate, and at this time I was still teaching, I still had my game shop, the show was picked up by a local station, K24. And I went in to negotiate for the contract. And, you know, initially, and I don't know if this happens to you guys, you go in with a very ambitious number, like a very, very high number. So I went in asking for an absurd amount because, you know, what's there to lose? They'll give me the meeting. I might as well ask. The worst they could say is no. Yeah. But then something interesting happened. They did say no. They negotiated. And so I ended up working out with a contract for about $1 million shillings a month, which is what you're talking about, Waithaka, the $10,000 a month. And the day before I graduated in 2013, I graduated on a Saturday. The premiere of my first TV show premiered on the Friday. And of course, the rest became history, as they say. And since then, I have about 11 TV shows. I've gotten into farming. I'm in hospitality and a bunch of other things. But you can see all that foundation was built during my college years, as I've just explained. And it's because of those three opportunities that I've mentioned. The first one being going with my cousin to a film set, which seemed like just work or just passing by time, which is how I ended up in the film and television industry. The second opportunity was the Mutuzo laws, which allowed me to set up the game coach. Now, the game coach is very important because when I got my TV contract, I had money because you remember I'm making some money from selling the pirated films. Actually, there's an irony there. I pirated movies to be able to make my own. So the game coach business allowed me to save some money. So by the time I was getting my TV contract, I had capital. And then, of course, eventually the walk-in, which didn't seem like an opportunity itself, is what led to my first TV show, which then has led me to where I am now. So I hope from these three stories that I've told you that you can sort of see how opportunity doesn't always seem like opportunity, but it actually is. And I hope that everybody listening, you're able to spot the opportunities in your life because you don't know how they might turn out. Asante Waithaka.
Eugene, now you should see the comments coming through because all our brothers are just saying, wow, wow. In fact, Chris has just written, wow, wow, wow. Nikolai has said Kenyan superhero. Samuel has said smart. Eugene's story is just on another level. That's Kavui Mureithi. This talk is so encouraging. And you know what? Why I feel that there's resonance here is because you're being real. But I don't know if people are paying attention to the lessons. Let's get to the reality, because you know, I know there's a couple of guys, their ears perked up at the 1 million per month. They missed something. They missed something along the way. Let's see if we picked up on a few things here. First of all, thank you for making me feel old, because you said Makutano and Mwalwa are old shows. I was an old man while these things were happening, but that's something else. What I loved is the idea that you were never measuring yourself against others, but against yourself. And I think that came out even in what Katleho said, and also what Mwenesi said earlier, that you watched others, but you never used them as a measure. And I think we get caught up in that space when you're trying to live up to a measure and find yourself lost in that. The second thing that I'm taking away from your whole discussion, and all the young men, please listen. And if you're a young lady, you can listen from the side as well. Guys, listen, everyone in this room who is speaking to you, myself included, we started working before we got a job. We started working in campus. We started working, some of us in high school. So stop waiting to finish campus, then start looking for a job. No, do the work first. And if you're saying there are no opportunities, I hope you have listened and at this point have realized the opportunities are facing you. Maybe they're just not paying you the $1 million. That will come, the 1 million shillings, that will come later. The issue is start the work, because what you're doing is building experience. You're building a network. You're building opportunities, because that walking that my brother just talked about here, who is hosting us today? Whoever is the host from my team, Esther, Mike, I hope you can put us all on the screen. Just do the, what is it called? The gallery view, so you can see all the men talking to you just now. Watch this. Eugene's story was a step-by-step process. Just the same way that Katleho was talking about the fact that it was a journey of discovery. Just remember, that's the same thing that Mwenesi was talking about. He discovered along the way, but along the way, you're doing the work. I loved the Makutano opportunity because it was boring work, just being on a set, but that moment gave you time to think and to work through. And I loved that walking was an opportunity, that as you walked to the job that other people probably were not willing to do, you started seeing things that were not there. But the thing is, the problem is many of us are the guys in your store playing the video games and watching the movies and not doing what they're seeing there. Look, there's time for video games and movies. Hey, an easy Friday afternoon is enough. You know, a Sunday afternoon, but the rest of the week, guys, it's time to work. And if I wanted to give a whole speech about money, but you guys have stolen the thunder. I don't want to go in that direction anymore. I want us to begin to deeply think about where we are starting. You know, some of the things I write down, it's so that people pay attention to them. Eugene, you just mentioned, it took 2 years from the inception of your idea to a TV station taking up. And 2 years is a refining process.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but my first business that I started was actually filmmaking as well. And I did sell So I did sell to two stations as well, a program. I remember that feeling just like you do, of selling your first program to a TV station for broadcast. But what people don't see is that refining process, that it didn't, the idea, I went and pitched it. They said, not good enough yet. Try this, try this. You're still investing. You go back and you put it up again, and then you take it to them. So to all the young men, I hope you guys are beginning to see that this thing is a journey of discovery. If you are willing to take that journey, it will make a huge difference. And we want Centonomy to be part of that journey. If you've heard from everyone who's been speaking here, there are certain lessons along the way, life lessons, certain ideas, certain concepts that help them to catapult to the next level. And in the Centonomy Campus Edition, let me just quickly tell you about it, then we can take a couple of questions before we finish up. in the Centonomy Campus Edition, we cover all these things. So there's the principles of money management. And I'm going to give you 3 principles just so that you can begin that journey along the way. But we talk about how do you manage it once it comes in. So you don't have to make the mistakes that some of us did before we actually got the concept, because many people don't get the concept and just continue living life the same way. So here's a head start to all of you young men when you join into this program. The second one is the idea of time value of money and the effect of the compounding effect of your investments. All of us in this room, Eugene, Mwenesi, Katleho, and myself, if we had implemented, okay, maybe not Eugene, because Eugene is still in his 20s. The rest of us, if we had implemented the investment strategies and understood that even those small amounts of money that we're making when we are in our 20s can add up significantly through compounding when you're hitting your 40s and 50s. So the time to start is now. And one of the key issues is to also understand debt. I'm going to show you what debt looks like just now. I'm going to show you what debt looks like, and then we'll have a bit of time for questions. But if you understand that if I'm taking debt and it's so expensive, I need to take it for something that will pay me back. But all the young men in the room, I know, just type in the chat box which car you have been dreaming about buying, just like my brother Mwenesi. I know the car that he drives and has been driving, and where he started driving, although now he's doing it responsibly. I know, just type in the chat box which car, and I'm going to show you the cost of that car through debt. And if we understood it the other way around, there's a good friend of mine, he's called, in Kenya, he's a DJ, he's called DJ Stretch. And what I love about him is he understood that concept. He built his DJ business with the thought in mind that he's going to buy his Golf GTI. And he just recently got married, and at his wedding, part of his vows, he asked his wife, please don't take away my sports car from me. That, those are the kind of discussions Mwenesi was talking about. Have a partner that you have in place who's going to help you out. Then we begin to understand the principles of entrepreneurship. Because if you've heard from all the gentlemen here, the journey of starting a successful business is, again, a process. It is a skill set that you can build. And rather than waiting and kind of fumbling through it, understand the principles, understand the rules of the game, so you have a better chance of success. And I know that many of us, guys, I know many are here are thinking, oh, but I don't want to get into business. I want to, as a young man, I have a career. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer, all these things. And business is not part of who I am. That's okay. That's okay. It does not mean that you cannot create wealth through a career. In fact, the principles that you apply across the board of adding value are the same principles that both Mwenesi and Katleho are talking about, where you're saying if you're valuable to your employer or to the industry, people are willing to pay you. So we talk about career planning from that perspective. How do you build a personal brand? How do you begin to build that social capital that we're mentioning so that someone notices you? What Eugene mentioned a few minutes ago, Eugene mentioned that he was on a set and somebody noticed him and talked to him about it, or he got an opportunity to talk to someone else through that building of social capital. And having that group of people around you who are helping you on that journey makes a huge difference. And the final part of this that we do in the campus edition is that we have mentorship sessions just like this. But this one has been a short one. We don't have enough time on a session like this to go through all the details. But in those mentorship sessions, we call wonderful gentlemen like the ones who've spoken to you, and they begin to just to get deeper. You can imagine now listening to their stories for an hour each, the learnings that you'll get from it. And we're committed to it across the board. So the Centonomy Campus Edition is designed to help you jumpstart your journey to wealth creation as a young person. During this lockdown period with COVID-19 around the world, we've got a great 20% discount that is available to you. The classes, all you're required to do is attend one class per week. That is on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. East African time. The classes will begin on the 10th of October. And if you're interested, we've got some details there at the bottom. You can reach out to Esther on esther@centonomy.com. She'll give you the full breakdown of all that is required. And this is an amazing team who are going to help us out with that. You can also use the phone number if you'd like to call in. And to all the men, this is designed for young men between the age of 17 and 24, because that's usually your campus stage when you're still deciding, am I going the career way? Am I going the business way? What is the direction I want to take? And here are the tools that will help you jumpstart that journey. As we said, we've got a 20% lockdown discount. And for today only, because you have shown up for this event, we've also got a registration discount as well. So the full fee is $13,600. That tuition fee is payable in installments. This is Kenya shillings, 4,200, 4,200, 4,200. That's about $42 per installment every week. And then 500 to register today. Guys, if you're in Kenya, the M-Pesa pay bill is there at the bottom, 986850. The account number, you put your name and then CE at the end so that we can recognize you're registering for campus edition, CE. Today, all you have to do is to commit with that 500 shillings or about $5 or so. And for all those in Kenya, this is the time to register. Usually registration is 1,000 bob, but you've got a discount, young men, for showing up today. For those who are in the international audience, sorry, that was the M-Pesa details. For those in the international audience, I've seen all of you in Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa. I've seen you. I didn't see anywhere else. I didn't see anywhere else. But if you're watching from somewhere around the world, the details are up on the screen right now. I want you to write down 3 principles that will help you on your wealth creation journey. 3 principles that will help you on your wealth creation journey. As we take those details down, you can just take a quick screenshot so that you can be able to do that. Here are the 3 things, and they're the principles that we build upon here at Centonomy. Number one, write it down, pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. What does that mean? Pay yourself first means you save and invest first. Anytime you receive some money, priority should be save a little bit of it. I didn't say save all of it. Save a little and invest a little so that it becomes part of your process, part of the journey. It becomes habitual that when you get some cash, the first consideration is to pay yourself by doing what? 2 things, guys. And I hope you're typing it in the chat box and in the comments on Facebook. 2 things: pay yourself first, save, and invest. So saving is to put aside cash for an emergency. Investment is where you want your money to grow. And the options for investment, we talk about them in detail in the Centonomy Campus Edition class. Things like a money market fund, mutual funds, depending on which country you're in, different mutual funds, but also direct investments that you can do, like the men that you saw speaking to you a few minutes ago. Once you've paid yourself, and it's a key thing to think about, because what we often do with our budgeting is we receive some money, then we pay the landlord, we pay rent, then we pay the supermarket to buy food, then we pay transport, we pay everything else. So then we pay taxes, we pay all these other things, and we forget ourselves. So when you do that first, you pay yourself first, then you begin to have more control over your money and have a direction on it. So number 1 is pay yourself first. Number 2, write it down, gentlemen, and ladies who are also here with us. Number 2, write it down, track your spending. If you listen to the men here, one of the biggest issues is we don't know where our money goes. The moment you track your spending, I'm not saying to stop spending on certain things. Maybe you'll make that decision. But the issue is this. Come on, guys. Do you know where your money goes so that you're making a purposeful decision on where that money goes? Okay? So tracking your spending gives you the reality of where your money goes so that you don't end up the guy earning 1 million shillings and spending 80,000 on alcohol, and you're not an alcoholic buying for everybody else. So you can be generating a lot of money, but not building wealth, not building wealth. And the third lesson, please guys, write it down so that you don't forget. Focus on assets. Focus on assets. Your priority should be an asset first, because an asset does 3 things. Focus on asset is number 3, but an asset does 3 things. An asset appreciates in value, that's number 1. An asset appreciates in value, as in it's worth more in the future than it is now. An asset gives you an income. So you see, like a car, when you buy that car, all you're doing is taking money and putting it into that. You put fuel, insurance, parking fees, washing the car. It takes money out of your, yes, it makes you feel good, but it's not an asset that is putting money into your pocket. So you see, if you bought a car and you made it an Uber taxi, that taxi is putting money in your pocket. And that is that's the difference between an asset and what we call here at Centonomy a flosset. So there's an income. That's number two of what an asset is. And number three, it protects your investment. It protects your investment. So like a car, again, if it's your personal car, when you buy it, it's worth maybe $1 million shillings, $10,000. Okay, good, wonderful. The next month, it will be worth less than that. So you've lost value. Whereas if, let's say, you purchased, Katleho, there was no problem with buying land. Look, I'm saying build yourself first, I understand. But when you buy a piece of land, generally because of how real estate works and the fact that it's at reduced, there's higher demand because there's lower supply, the value generally increases over time. So you're protecting the money that you put into it. These are the principles that we talk about in the Centonomy Campus Edition. And it's a real honest discussion around how to build wealth, but also those personal growth principles that you've heard from the gentleman speaking to you. So I want you right now, if you can go over to your M-Pesa and make that deposit of 500 just to register today. All you need to do is to register with 500 shillings, or if you're in the international audience, it's $5, I believe, and the details, I'll put them up on the screen just now. I want you to make that choice to begin to grow now. Because if you remember, one of the principles we are talking about is to be surrounded with people who are thinking the same way as you do. And when you show up for this class, you will be surprised by the attitudes, the go-getter attitude that all the young men and women who are in the session are going to be with. This is the time to do it. Don't procrastinate. One of the things that you learn in the Campus Edition class is one of your greatest assets is time, but you can never get it back. Once you've lost time, you can't get it back. You can only look forward. So your greatest asset as a young person is your time. Don't waste it. This October is when we're going to be starting. So I want you to register for that just now. I said that I mentioned that I'd share what debt looks like. So you can see how practical the classes are. I wanted to show you what a loan to buy that car. Did I see some cars listed on the chat box? Let me just see if I can see someone who wrote that dream car. I want to show you the cost so that we can begin to make that choice. I saw it, the Mark X. Paul Mutinda, I see you there. Paul Mutinda, let me show you what your Mark X will cost. At least I have an idea what that Mark X looks like. From what I've seen, the Mark X is, if you're looking for a good one, you're about spending 1.5 million shillings. You'll be charged about 15% interest for 5 years. So watch this, Paul Mutinda. This is one of the tools we use in the class so that you can see. You buy the card 1.5 at 15% for 5 years. Watch this. Monthly, Paul Mutinda, you'll be spending 35,000 shillings per month, and you'll pay interest alone over those 5 years of 641,000 shillings. So how much did Paul buy this Mark X for? Because this is the amount the car was worth, but he paid interest of this amount in the chat box. And please, in the comments on Facebook, how much is Paul going to pay for this car that is worth 1.5 million? How much will he pay over time? Come on, I'm waiting for those responses. Let's go, let's go. Somebody. Hey, there we go. Brian, look at that. Chris got it. Samuel got it. I'm waiting to see you on Facebook. Where are you on Facebook, guys? I want to see. Great. Wonderful. So he's paid 2.1 million. Now, guys, this is 5 years later he has paid this amount. How much do you think that Mark X is worth after 5 years of paying this loan? Let's hear it, guys. How much after 5 years do you think that Mark X is worth? Come on, guys. Maybe Charles is saying maybe 800K. Brian is saying maybe 7. So it has lost value. Do you see now why it is not an asset? Let me give you an idea, Paul, because you're the one who said the Mark X. If you spent this 1.5 M and you bought, there are some small housing developments. Look, it's not the house you want to buy, but it's a house that you can buy for 1.5 and you earn rent for 5 years of 3,000 per month. Can somebody help me with that? 3,000 shillings per month rent. So it's 3,000 times 12 times 5. Let's find out how much that is. 3,000 times 12, that's per year on rent that he's going to earn, times 5. How much is that, guys? In terms of cash, 180,000 benefit. Not only that, Paul, but that house which you bought at 1.5 is now not worth 1.5 million, but it will be probably worth more than 1.5 million. So do you see the difference between what we call an asset and a faucet? Gentlemen, ladies, we've got to get real about our money, especially young men. Gentlemen, Katleho, I think you're there. Mwenesi, you're there. Eugene, I believe you're around. We'll take two or three questions maybe that we can be able to finish up quickly with. Let's go. Real quick in the chat box, type your question that you'd like the wonderful gentleman to respond to, and we'll get to them just now. Someone is asking where the registration details, they're there on the screen, especially for those who are in Kenya. Then I'll put the international ones up just now. So if you have a question for the gentleman, just type it real quick in the chat box. I really appreciate all the responses we've been getting. Clinton, I see you. Albert, I see you. Is that Cheryl or Cheryl? Cheryl, must be Cheryl. Forgive me. Great. This one out to Katleho. What do you think about network marketing? No, actually, this is to all the gentlemen. Maybe you have some ideas on network marketing. Let's go. Eugene, any thoughts on network marketing?
You know, surprisingly, Waithaka, I've been asked, every panel I've spoken to in the last few months, I've been asked about this. And I don't know if my answer has been a bit too, I don't really believe in models that rely on recruiting others, Please. And again, the last time I spoke about this, I said, don't touch it, but then someone else told me, oh, no, it could be a business. But I only get, like, you always have to ask yourself, are you selling a product or are you selling subscriptions, like for more people to start joining to help you sell more? It just, they're called pyramid schemes for a reason, because they benefit a very small number of people at the top, and chances are you'll never get there. And if you do, at what cost? It's just, I don't think there's anything you should be spending your time on. They prey on the desperate. There's no real products being sold, and they're not sustainable usually. Just look at the history of them. Most of them collapsed after a bunch of years. So it's a no for me. I will not advise anybody to join any.
Katleho, a thought on that?
Yeah. I mean, mine will seemingly be, and maybe a different experience to say Eugene, because I don't know the context of the network marketing community in let's say Nairobi, right? But for me, the starting point is it's always make sure you're getting value. So value is always critical, right? So ask yourself, where do you get most value? Now, some of the, network marketing, for me, again, let me maybe rephrase it this way. For me, the idea of network marketing is just, it's a way of selling a product in the best way actually that's ever been proven to sell a product, which is word of mouth, right? It's that, like, I'll always just buy a product from someone because I trust their input, right? And then basically it's incentivizing that person to sell it to me. Now, you're right, Eugene, that and that it's true, because often also people say network marketing is pyramid schemes. And in many ways they are, but there are actually different models of network marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's, for instance, what are these called? Not incentive programs, but so for instance, let's just give an example. If I use Airbnb, right? I can use my Airbnb voucher to basically say to anyone in my network, hey, I've used Airbnb, you get a discount on using my Airbnb account, and then I get a discount on my next utility of the product. So for me, the value of it is the ability to exchange. But you're right, there are models. So I would say it's a very tricky space. You need to do your homework. You need to know the business, because so I've got two sides of the story. I joined a network marketing business many years ago. I think I was like 21, 22, where I was selling insurance. That business was like the worst thing ever, but I had to learn. I had to get my fingers burned, and I learned, right, the hard way, right? But there's also been spaces where there's network marketing environments where it's been great, because it's a way for me to share the product with other people. And one of them is an online investment platform that I'm currently using. And so every time,
because of time, let me stop you there. Let me help you with the principle. And I think that this is one that I've learned along the way. The principle is this, essentially, Katleho. It is, if you make more money, if you can't make money by selling the product or service, and you have to make money by recruiting people, that's where the issue comes in.
Exactly.
Because if the value you're getting is other people doing work on your behalf, that's a dangerous place. But if there's an actual product or service that even if you didn't bring anybody else on board, you could sell, it has value that people are willing to buy, that's a good area to be in. But if the money comes from just, hey, get 6 other people, get other people, then you know there's an issue of that pyramid.
Exactly. And that's a model that's incorrect. So so just to say that, there are multiple ways to approach it, but for sure.
Mwenesi, real quick, any tips on someone who wants to start a coaching business? What's your experience? Because I know you do a lot of that.
Okay. So I think the best thing is just to start, but you can only start charging money or really exchanging your coaching for value once you've hit a certain threshold. And I think most of the coaching certificates require you to have done a couple of hours of coaching before you can actually be certified. And you record those hours and including the names as well. But coaching it's a confidential business. It's almost like therapy, but it's not. So you're not a psychologist, you're not a counselor, you're not a psychiatrist, you're a coach. You're someone to help someone through their thing. So I would say just start putting in the hours with as many people around you as you can, because you're basically an advisor. You're in an advisory role. And they say that don't put too much of your own experiences and your own personal biases into the coaching. So I would start by practicing with the friends and family who are around me. So if you've got people around you who are in a difficult situation or in a challenging situation that you yourself are familiar with, and we say this a lot in some of the Centonomy classes that we teach, don't go into coaching about something that you yourself have no capacity in. And there's ways of identifying the capacity that you have. Number one, people will naturally gravitate to you for advice anyway. So don't coach on something that people are not coming to you for advice. Number two, don't coach on something that you feel like it's an effort, or you're not particularly interested, or you don't particularly care about that environment. And I think the word here is care. You can only be successful in exchanging value on the stuff that you care about. Listening to Eugene and Katleho, and even knowing everything about you, Waithaka, why you guys are successful and why people are successful is because besides the money, besides anything else, there's a deep care. You actually care. It's not for someone to tell you, wake up and go do this thing. You yourself are fully invested in that item. So don't coach on things that you don't care about. And finally, if you are not willing to deal with people, if you feel like people are tiring, then I suggest you stay away from coaching, because human beings are very complex. The person that you coach today on one issue is not the same person that you will coach tomorrow. So just do it by practicing. Start with the friends and family that are around you. If you're a student, start by giving advice and make sure that it's structured. And how you structure it is by setting a time and say, okay, John, I'll give you 1 hour. Let's talk about your issue for 1 hour. If it's at home, if it's in church, if it's in school, make sure that you structure it and then you record. Structure, record. And then once you've done a couple of hours, then now maybe you can start going online to look for some certification that makes you legitimate. And then now even in those certifications, there will be some tips on how much to charge. But I know, for example, I charge differently for different modules, but it depends largely on which market you want to play in. So I know that for students who come to me for advice, I don't offer sessions necessarily, because what I charge is quite expensive, but I will have like maybe 2 or 3 hours in the week that I will dedicate just for mentorship. So decide which level that you're playing in. That way it will inform the kind of charges that you want to put across. Excellent,
Mwenesi. One question though here, which I'll take. Lamek is asking, I've got a problem saving. Should I just start with a savings account? Yes. Because it is a process. Start with the savings account and get into understanding other investment options. And the Centonomy Campus Edition is designed for that. We help you to begin to see what other tools are there to use to save and that can achieve the various goals that you want to get through. We begin to define that wealth creation journey. I know I'm selling the program. That's my job. I need to do so. Hey, but it's also because that's where you get the value. When you get a trainer like Mr. Mwenesi here for 3 hours and not for 15 minutes, you get value. Time is there. So I encourage you, Lamek, actually join the class. Eugene, the last question, then we have to go. We're 10 minutes over time, but I wanted to give good value. Eugene, there's a question here on getting into the service industry. What are your main considerations when you're starting a business? What are your main considerations when starting a business? What do you look at and say, hey, this is something Eugene is interested in, because you've got into various things. So what is it that are your main considerations when starting a business?
Waithaka, to be very honest with you, I don't really have a formula that I follow. The businesses that I'm in, I got into for different varied reasons. For instance, the bar business, for a long time, my friends and I drink, so I would go out and party with my friends. And the thing about me is anytime I'm exposed to something, and Waithaka, you don't even remember the interview, I'm very inquisitive. I want to ask about how much does that cost? How much money do you make from this? What's the process? And so just the amount of time I was spending in bars with, because I have a very good friend who's a DJ, so I'd follow him around everywhere he's performing. And that's the reason I got into that business. And also it happened that one of my partners has been in the business before, so they were a good partner to be with. So that was the reasoning behind that. Now, for the farming, I have a feedlot, and this was purely driven by data. One of my partners on that front is a gentleman called Mr. Kagema. And he came to me one day and he told me, he went through this amazing research that showed that Kenya has never met its quota for beef ever, like since our independence and even before, which means often we have to import as well. But not just any beef, premium beef was a problem. And so the more we looked into that, we looked into the model, how does it work? So that was what drove that. He found data that showed a lack of a need in a space. I'd say I'm more of an opportunist more than anything. As I mentioned, I'm constantly looking out for opportunities, and when I see them and they make sense, I run.
Here's the question, Eugene.
Yes.
What do you mean by it makes sense? Maybe that's what you can define for us. What do you mean by it makes sense?
Okay, it makes sense. There's a ready market for it. I have what's required to enter the market, for instance, because I'll give you an example. I would love to be in aviation, but I just do not have the money. So I wouldn't waste any time looking into that. So ideally, is there a ready market? Do I have someone I can partner with who has quite a bit of knowledge on that front? And is it something that I can myself get into without much thought?
Eugene, you've struck the nail on the head, and we talk about that in the program, especially around the principles of entrepreneurship. It's not just identifying opportunity, but as you said, do you have the capital? Do you have the knowledge? Have you done the research? Is there a market? All these factors putting together, I think that they are the key to this. Gentlemen, both on the panel and also those who've been listening, it has been a pleasure. The questions have been at a very high level. The content has been at an amazing, amazing level. You guys, for those who've been wondering, how do I re-immerse myself in this content? Please go to Centonomy on Facebook. You'll find all our Centonomy pages, Centonomy on Facebook, and also Centonomy Campus Edition on Facebook. This recording will be available there, so you can re-watch it and go through those parts that you may have missed. But to the gentlemen, hands up to you all. Eugene, thank you so much. Mr. Mwenesi, thank you so much. Katleho, I think I'm getting better. The tongue is twisting just well enough to say the name well. I appreciate your time. Thank thank you for giving back to younger men and the experiences that they've had. To everyone else who's been watching this, if you're aged between 17 and 24, the Centonomy Campus Edition is for you. I want you to register right now, especially with the lockdown discount. It's only $500 to register today. Do it right now so that we see you in class on the 10th of October. That's when the class begins, and we continue to build moving forward. I wish you all the best. God bless. Have a great weekend. It has been a pleasure. My name is Waithaka Gatumia. See you in class, guys.
Bye.
Thank you all.
It was such a blessing.